In the quiet of a rainy night, someone left behind a map, its edges worn, its secrets whispering of a journey long forgotten. What would you do if you found it, tucked away in the glow of a lantern, calling you to wander? If you want to find peace in this gentle journey through distant lands, I'd be truly thankful for a soft like and a subscribe to. Catch our next soothing tale. Rain taps softly on my window, a gentle rhythm that feels like the world is breathing. I'm curled up in my bedroom, a quilt draped over my knees, the air carrying the scent of damp earth and cedar from the open journal on my desk. A lantern glows, casting shadows over maps, pinned to the wall, maps of places I've only dreamed of. The steam from my coffee curls upward, mingling with the cool mist sneaking through the cracked window. It's the kind of night where stories feel alive, where the past hums just beneath the surface, waiting to be told. I lean back, my eyes tracing the lines of an old Silk Road map, and I think of her, a wanderer named Livia, whose story I first heard in 2019, whispered by a bookseller in a dusty shop in Florence. It's lived in my heart ever since. Livia wasn't famous, not like Marco Polo, whose name echoes through history, but she was real, a quiet shadow trailing the great explorer's caravan in 1271, a young woman from Venice with eyes full of stars and a heart hungry for the world. She wasn't in the books, not by name, but the merchant's tales spoke of, a girl who followed the Silk Road, her steps light, but her spirit heavy with secrets. I imagine her now, her cloak dusted with sand, her boots worn from the endless trails stretching from Venice to the heart of Asia. Can you picture it? Leaving everything behind for a path that might never lead home. The Silk Road wasn't just a trade route, it was a vein of the world, pulsing with spices, silks, and stories. Marco Polo, barely 17, set out with his father and uncle, their caravan winding through deserts and mountains, from Venice to the court of Kublai Khan. But Livia, she was different. She wasn't there for trade or glory. She carried a small leather book, its pages filled with sketches of places she'd seen: cobblestone streets in Constantinople, the golden domes of Samarkand, the cedar-scented air of Kashgar's markets. She wrote of time, how it felt like a river she could never quite touch, always slipping through her fingers. The rain outside grows heavier, drumming against the glass, like it's trying to tell me something. I sip my coffee, the warmth spreading through me, and I wonder what it was like for Livia, stepping into the unknown. The Silk Road was no gentle path. Bandits roamed the dunes, and storms could bury a caravan in hours. Yet Livia walked on, her book tucked close, her eyes scanning the horizon for something she couldn't name. There was a rumor, you see, whisper among the traders, about a hidden trail, a path off the main route that led to a place where time didn't flow the same way. A valley, they said, where the stars seemed to pause, where the past and future blurred. Livia heard it in a tavern in Bukhara, the words half lost in the clink of cups and the scent of saffron. She didn't believe it at first, but the idea clung to her, like dust on her cloak. I pause, my fingers brushing the map on my desk. It's old, not hers, but it feels like a piece of her story. Have you ever felt a pull like that? A whisper in your heart, urging you to chase something you can't explain. Livia felt it. She started sketching the rumors, piecing together fragments from traders, monks, and nomads. A map within her map, drawn in faint ink, its lines leading to a valley no one could name. She didn't tell Marco or the others. They were focused on silks and spices, on reaching the Khan's palace. But Livia, she was chasing time itself. Her journey took her through places that still feel alive in my mind. In Constantinople, she walked streets where the air smelled of roasted chestnuts and sea salt, the Hagia Sophia's dome glowing under a twilight sky. She wrote of the bells, how they rang so deep she felt them in her chest, like the city was singing to her. In Samarkand, the markets buzzed with voices in a dozen tongues, the scent of cumin and roses thick in the air. She sketched the turquoise tiles of the Registan, their colors shifting in the dawn light, and wondered if time could be caught in their patterns. In Kashgar, where the desert met the mountains, she slept under a sky so vast it made her feel small, her lantern flickering, as she wrote, "Time moves differently here, like it's watching me." The rain slows outside, a soft patter now, and I pull my quilt closer. I can almost see Livia, her face lit by firelight, her book open on her lap. She was alone often, slipping away from the caravan to follow her hidden trail. The others didn't notice, or if they did, they didn't care. Marco was busy documenting the wonders of the East, his eyes on the Khan's court, but Livia was different. She wasn't looking for wealth or fame. She was looking for meaning, for a place where the world made sense. Don't you ever wonder that, where your own trail leads, when you strip away the noise and just listen? The suspense of her journey wasn't in battles or bandits, though those were real enough. It was in the quiet moments, the ones where she stood at a crossroads, her map trembling in her hands, wondering if the valley was real or just a dream. One night, in a caravanserai near Danwang, she met an old monk. His eyes were clouded, his hand steady as he poured tea that smelled of jasmine. He spoke of the valley, his voice low, as if the walls might hear. "It's not a place you find," he said. "It's a place that finds you." He gave her a scrap of parchment, its edges frayed, with a single line inked in a script she couldn't read. She tucked it into her book, her heart racing. Was this the key, or just another story? I lean back in my chair, the lantern's glow softening the room. The rain is a whisper now, and I can almost hear Livia's footsteps, crunching on desert gravel, her breath catching as she followed the monk's clue. She started sketching faster, her book filling with notes, landmarks, stars, the curve of a river that didn't match any map. The caravan moved on, through the Taklamakan desert, where the sand stung her face, and the nights were so cold her fingers shook as she wrote. But she kept going, her eyes scanning the horizon for a sign, a hidden trail, a forgotten valley, a place where time stood still. The others in the caravan started to notice her distance. Marco, young and curious, asked her once what she was writing. She smiled, her fingers brushing the leather cover of her book. "Just stories," she said, but her eyes held a secret. He didn't press her, but I wonder if he sensed it, the weight of what she was chasing. Have you ever carried a secret like that? Something too big to share, but too heavy to hold alone? By the time the caravan reached the edges of the Gobi, Livia was slipping away more often. She'd wander at dawn, when the world was quiet, following her map's faint lines. The desert stretched endless before her, the air sharp with the scent of dust and distant snow. One morning, as the sun rose, she saw Ita ridge of mountains, their peaks catching the light like a signal. Her heart leaped. The valley was close. She could feel it. But the caravan was moving on, and she had to choose, stay with them or follow the trail alone. The rain outside my window has stopped, leaving only the drip of water from the eaves. I set my coffee down, my eyes on the map. Livia stood at that crossroads, her book clutched to her chest, the wind whispering through the desert. She didn't know it then, but her choice would change everything, not just for her, but for the secrets she carried. What would you do, standing there, with the world pulling you one way and your heart another? She took a step, and the trail called her name. The lantern on my desk sputters, its golden glow trembling across the open map, where ink lines twist like veins of the earth. Rain taps the window again, a soft, insistent rhythm, as if the night itself is urging me to keep telling her story. I'm wrapped in my quilt, the air heavy with the scent of cedar from the wooden chest by my bed and the damp earth carried in by the storm. My coffee, half forgotten, sends steam curling into the dimness, and I see Livia standing in the vast Gobi, her book clutched tight, the wind calling her name. She took that step, toward the mountains, toward the hidden trail, Her heart thrummed, not with fear, but with a quiet fire need to chase what time had hidden. Livia was alone now, a solitary figure against the desert's endless sprawl. The caravan's dust had settled, Marco Polo and his companions long gone toward the Khan's court, their voices swallowed by the horizon. She didn't glance back. Her boots crunched on frost-kissed gravel, the air sharp with the temps of distant snow, and the faint sweetness of wild thyme crushed underfoot. The mountains rose before her, their peaks catching the dawn's blush, jagged and silent, like guardians of secrets older than the Silk Road itself. Her leather book, worn and heavy with sketches, felt like a living thing in her hands. The monk's frayed parchment tucked inside a riddle, a promise, a map within a map. Can you imagine it? Holding something that feels like it knows more than you do, pulling you toward a place you can't yet name. The Silk Roads, clamorets, camels, traders, and clinking coins was a memory now. Livia's path was older, quieter, as if the earth had carved it for wanderers who listened to its whispers. She followed the ridge, her eyes tracing landmarks she'd inked in her book. A gnarled tree bent by centuries of wind, a river's curve glinting like a blade, a boulder shaped like a sleeping giant. The monk's words echoed in her mind, low and steady. It's not a place you find, it's a place that finds you. She didn't know what lay ahead, but each step felt like unraveling time, like peeling back the layers of a world that breathed beneath the surface. I pause, my fingers brushing the map on my desk, its edges curling like Livia's own. Have you ever felt that? A pull so deep it's like the earth itself is calling you home. The trail wound higher, the air thinning, carrying the scent of pine and dust. Livia passed villages where lanterns glowed like scattered stars, their light spilling onto dirt paths. In one, an old woman with hands like weathered oak offered her tea that tasted of mint and smoke, her eyes crinkling as she spoke of a valley where time didn't rush, where the stars held still. Livia listened, her fingers tracing the parchments. Strange script, its lines like a language she could almost understand. Was it real, this valley, or just another story woven into the Silk Road's endless threads? The question clung to her, soft but persistent, like the rain outside my window, tapping gently, urging me to keep going. She pressed on, the trail narrowing into a pass where the wind sang through the rocks, a low, haunting note that made her shiver. Below, she saw it a valley cradled by cliffs, its floor lush with moss, a stream threading through it like a silver vein. The stars above burned too bright, too steady, as if they'd paused to watch her. She opened her book, her quill scratching softly. Time feels different here, like it's waiting. I leaned back in my chair, the quilt slipping slightly, the lantern's glow painting shadows on the wall. Don't you ever wonder about places like that, where the world slows down and you can hear your own heart? Livia descended, her steps careful, on the moss-licked stones, the air cool and heavy with the scent of wet earth and wildflowers. The valley was small, no wider than a village square, but it felt vast, like it held more than its edges could contain. At its heart lay a circle of stones, ancient and smooth, their surfaces etched with symbols that matched the monk's parchment. Her breath caught as she knelt, her fingers tracing the carving spirals, stars, lines that seemed to pulse under her touch. They weren't just marks. They felt like stories, like time itself had been carved into the rock. She didn't know their meaning, but they spoke to her. Not in words, but in a quiet hum, like the wind moving through the pines. She sat there, her lantern casting a soft glow, her book open on her lap. The valley was silent, save for the stream's murmur and the faint rustle of leaves. She wrote of Marco Polo, of the caravans she'd left behind, of the silks and spices that would reach the Khan's palace in Cambaluc. But her journey was different. She wasn't chasing trade or glory. She was chasing something softer, something that felt like belonging. I set my coffee down, its warmth fading, and I think of Livia's quiet courage, Haven't we all searched for that? A place where the pieces of us fit, where the world feels like it's ours. Days blurred into nights, or maybe hours time in. The valley didn't move like it should. Livia sketched the stones, the stream, the way the light fell like a vow. She wrote of time, how it wasn't a straight path, but a spiral, looping back to moments she'd lived and moments she hadn't yet seen. The Silk Road had taught her that its roots tying Venice to Samarkand, past to present, her small life to something vast. But there was a shadow in her thoughts, a question that grew heavier with each passing hour. The monk's words, the parchment's script, the valley's stillness, they all pointed to a choice. Stay and let the world spin on without her, or leave, carrying the valley's secret back to a world that might not care. I pull my quilt closer, the rain outside slowing to a drizzle, its rhythm like a heartbeat. Livia's lantern burned low, its flame dancing as she sat by the stones. She found something there, not gold or answers, but a peace that settled deep like roots in rich soil. She wrote of the stars, how they seemed to hold her story, how they felt like old friends. But the valley wasn't a place to keep. It was a moment, a breath, a truth she'd carry in her bones. She traced the stones one last time, her fingers lingering, and made her choice. Livia left the valley at dawn, the air crisp, the streams, song fading behind her. She followed the trail back, her book heavier now, its pages filled with sketches of the stones, the stars, the valley's quiet magic. The mountains gave way to desert, the desert to plains, and she found a new caravan, not Marco's, but one bound for the west. The traders noticed her stillness, the way her eyes held a light they couldn't name. She didn't speak of the valley, but her book held its secrets, its pages a map of her heart. She walked with them through Kashgar's spice-scented markets, where the air buzzed with voices and the clink of coins, through Samarkand's turquoise-domed squares, where the sun painted shadows that felt like memories. The journey back was long, the Silk Road stretching endless before her. She passed caravanserais, where fires crackled and stories flowed like wine. In one, a merchant offered her a pomegranate, its juice tart on her tongue, and asked what she'd seen. She smiled, her fingers brushing her book. "Just the road," she said, but her voice carried a weight that made him pause. "Have you ever met someone like that? Someone whose eyes tell a story, their words don't." In Constantinople, she walked the same cobblestone streets she'd seen years before, the Hagia Sophia's bells ringing deep in her chest. The city felt different now, or maybe she did. She sketched the domes again, but this time, her lines were softer, as if she'd learned to see the world with gentler eyes. She wrote, "Time doesn't move us forward, it circles, bringing us back to who we are." I pause, my lantern flickering, the rain a faint whisper now. Livia's words feel like they're for me, for you, for anyone who's ever wandered and wondered where they belong. When she reached Venice, years had carved lines into her face, her hair streaked with gray. She was older, quieter, but her heart was young, full of the trail's whispers. She lived in a small house by the canals, where the water lapped softly, and the air smelled of salt and bread. Her book stayed with her, tucked in a chest, shared only with those who asked the right questions, a child with wide eyes, a traveler passing through. She didn't seek fame, like Marco Polo, whose tales of the East would echo through history. Livia's story was smaller, softer, but no less real. I close my journal, the map on my desk glowing under the lantern's light. The rain has stopped, leaving a stillness that feels like Livia's valley. Her story, tied to Marco Polo's real journey in 1271, lives in the whispers I heard in a Florence bookshop in 2019, in the maps and tales that found me. She was a wanderer, like us, chasing time and finding peace in the steps she took. What's your hidden trail? That quiet call in your heart, leading you somewhere only you can find. Livia's journey ended in Venice, but her story doesn't. It lives in every wanderer who hears the road's call, who dares to follow a path that might not lead home. It's in the stars that pause, the stones that whisper, the moments that feel like forever. Maybe that's the secret of the ancient trail, not a place, but a feeling, carried in every heart that wanders and wonders. If you're still with us, let us know in the comments where you're wandering from and what time it is there. Dream gently.